Kia ora whanau, my name is Haddon. I'm the Butterfly. I'm here to affect change. Welcome back to my second episode of the Butterfly Effect. Today I'm here with Jared. So, Jared, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Kia ora whanau. My name is Jared, and I am a doorman. I work in security. I have been doing it for quite some time. I had a bit of a break where I did a whole lot of other things, but I started out in security in 2006, mainly because I wanted to find out about myself and I wanted to develop some social skills and kind of harden my personality. It helped me focus a lot of my issues with bullying and stuff like that I experienced when I was younger. It put me in a role where I could control how I dealt with people on a level that didn't involve things like intimidation or physical violence or that kind of thing. But at the same time, I did it because I wanted to gain some strength within myself. Then I gave it a break. I did it for about 3 years, and I gave it a break, and I went off and I did other things. But the entire time that I was doing other things, civil contracting and stuff like that, I would think about security, and I would think about myself and my inner personality and how I thought of myself. And it seemed to me that security was the thing that made the most sense for me out of all the jobs and things that I tried. So inevitably, I went back to it about 18 months ago. I wasn't doing much at the time. I was building timber furniture out of my garage and stuff like that, just keeping busy with my hobbies, trying to be creative.
That's beautiful.
And yeah, and I thought I'd go back into security. And as I was giving it thought, I randomly got a phone call from my ex-employer, my boss, Daryl, from the security company that I worked for in the past. And it was like a projection. It was like a manifestation. You know, I had these ideas about going back into security. Then out of nowhere, I get this phone call. It was just a weird coincidence, if you believe in that sort of thing. Yeah. And I put it out there, and it came back to me. And I thought, yeah, I'm supposed to go back into it. And so now I have an older, more mature outlook to security, and I've evolved so much as a person in the last decade or so that going back into it now, I'm so much more adapted, and it's a completely different type of job. It's
Do you mind if I ask a question?
Sure.
So, what are the biggest lessons you've learned while working security? Because you said it's helped you with strength and overcoming like certain aspects that bullying have created. So, like, what else have you learned?
Yeah, hard out. When I was young, I got bullied a lot, and I had a bad temper, so it was really easy to push my buttons.
Yep.
Because I'd always give a reaction. And being in security and dealing with people, especially intoxicated people, you realise that there's a whole lot of tools you can use that are non-intimidating, non-violent tools. You don't have to excuse me. You don't have to manhandle people. You don't even have to come on too heavy.
Yep.
You just have to rationalise with them. And I think that's one of the things that I've learned, is that, you know, there are ways of taking control of a situation respectfully without just saying, look, you're a pissed idiot, get out of my bar. You've got to remember that everybody's got their own shit going on. Everybody. So learning to read a situation and having that strength to understand that you could be fucking up someone's night big time by how you treat them. And there could be tons of reasons for them to be in the state that they're in. So act respectfully, and use other tools, you know. Try to relate to people. And even just putting that vibe out there that you're not there to bully people, you know. Yeah. And I think that's the contrast between my childhood and my job now, is that because of my upbringing, I've learned that there's other ways. You don't have to bully people. I know I'm 6'4" and I walk up to people and they think shit.
Yep.
You know, but it's not about that. It's like I've got to talk so that they realise that I'm actually down here on a comfortable, cruisy level, and I've learnt to do that really well. Yeah.
Beautiful. So, who has been your biggest influences and who have been your role models as you've been like growing up, so to speak. I shouldn't say growing up, seeing as your age, but like as you've been progressing through life, who have been the biggest influences?
That's a hard one. My mother. My mother's always been there for me. She's always been unconditional. She's put up with a ton of shit over the years. Me being the oldest child, everything that I did was like the first for mum. You know what I mean? So I put her through some shit, and I made it a lot easier for my siblings to follow me, because I paved the way, unfortunately. But she's always been my hero because, well, one, she's put up with me, and she's such an enduring woman. And, you know, life hasn't always been kind to her. She's suffered some pretty shit things in her time. But, you know, she's always done the best she can, and she's always remained optimistic. And I admire her ability to function with active depression and shit like that, man. Like, she's so meticulous, almost to the point of just being OCD. And she does it because she knows that it's healthy, despite her, you know, her mental health. So I've learnt a lot from that. And, man, she's my hero. She's awesome. And I don't give her enough credit. But she's inspired me heaps, you know. Just her ability to endure. And life's about endurance, man.
Perseverance.
Yeah. I don't have a lot of male role models. I don't have a lot of men that I look up to as such. I take aspects from different people, but I couldn't list my top 5, to be honest. And I think that has a lot to do with the fact that I haven't had a lot of strong male presence in my life. And so I've tried to build myself based on what I consider to be integrity. I look at aspects of other men and I think that's noble, that's admirable. How can I be like that? But you know, it's a process. Like you've got to constantly evolve, and you've got to recognise that you have the ability to choose your own thoughts. You don't have to be influenced. You know what I mean? You just do it on a moral perspective. You say, this is what I think is right, this is what I think is wrong. People agree with you or they don't. But you've got to base your beliefs on your morals, I think. It would be nice to have had some decent, you know, decent male role models in my life to base things on. I mean, I've had stepfathers and stuff like that along the way who have taught me to work hard. They've taught me the meaning of hard work and discipline and things like that, but they have been flawed, and so I've had to try to not repeat, you know, the bad habits that I've learnt along the way, and that's where choosing your own ideas based on your morals comes in. Yeah.
That's beautiful. What's the worst piece of advice that you've ever received?
Um,
And like, how did that affect you?
I think the idea that you have to choose a path in life at a young age, I think that's...
That's a resounding one. I get that a lot.
Yeah, I think when you force that belief on a child, it creates this massive anxiety, especially in your teens. You know, like in my time, it was you had to get school C. You had to start thinking about a trade or a career, or at least heading in that direction. You know, and having a knowledge of what you wanted to do. And the sooner you do it, the better off you're going to be. And I don't think that's accurate. I don't think that's good advice. I think you should be motivated to earn money. You should be motivated to come out of school and go into work. But I think trying to force the idea that you should know what you want to do for the rest of your life at a young age is just inaccurate. And that's probably the worst advice I've ever received is, you know, start thinking about what you're going to do as soon as you leave school, you know, get into a career.
I also think it's the whole thing of like it takes time to get good at anything. Yeah. And like when you're young, you're not good at anything really. And so then you're like, oh, you're good at maths, you should go this direction. Yeah. And then you want to do something else, but then because you're bad at it, quote unquote, because you've just started. Yeah. And so it's like actually having the perseverance to push into what you want to do and like moving through the negative stages, or when you're like, you're not very good at it.
100%.
Yeah. 100%. So then what is the best piece of advice you received?
It's not so much a piece of advice, it's a philosophy, but life is about endurance, and I say that to people all the time, and it really is. Like, if you break it down, life's about a lot of things, but it's profoundly about endurance. You're not always going to get handed a good hand, and you're going to go through some shit. And I've got daughters, and I try to teach my daughter that from a young age, I tried to teach her that's the reality of the world, is that things are shit out there, and you no, they are, and you are going to go through some shit. You've got to realize that it's not all roses. Not everyone's going to be nice to you, and even if you're polite to people, they're not necessarily going to be polite back. Great. There's judgment out there, and you've got to not take that personally. But there's judgment out there. People are shit. So you've got to understand that life is about endurance, and sometimes you're going to go through things and circumstances that you're not aren't fun. Some really shit times, but you've got to see the other side of it, And even when you're feeling really depressed to the point where you think, I can't do this anymore, you've got to understand that there's going to be those better days where you're going to be in the sunshine, you're going to have your sunglasses on, you're going to feel the warmth of the sun, you're going to be with your friends. That shit's worth it, man. Mm-hmm. And when you're in those moments, you're not thinking about that time you were depressed,
But vice versa.
Yeah. So you really got to understand that life is about endurance, but also, like you say, vice versa. Be aware of the fact that even when you are in the sunshine, there's going to be another shit time in the future. Prepare yourself for that. We like to think that, that life is inexhaustible and that all these experiences are unlimited, but they're fucking not. And so you've got to understand that there's going to be the ups and downs, and you're going to have to navigate your way through that. And life, to get from the start to the end, is about enduring that. Endurance, no matter what it is, whether it's the good or the bad, you just have to navigate. You just have to keep on going. That's it.
See, for me, the word endure almost has a negative connotation. Like, endure is almost like I have to carry this weight, right? Whereas, and like you say, people are shit. Whereas I've found so often that very few people are actually shit, and so I think I'm far more optimistic in this sense. And when I think of endure, I think of persevering, and so when I'm in the worst times, I'm thinking about the sunshine. But then when I'm in the sunshine, I'm just thinking about the sunshine. Yeah. I'm not exactly preparing for the worst times. Right. Yeah.
That's optimism.
Yeah. So what is the hardest lesson to learn that you've had? And what was one of the hardest things you had to go through? Or not necessarily what you went through, but what did you learn from that? What was the lesson?
Hardest lesson. There's been a lot of hard lessons. I guess most recently, the hardest lesson I've had to learn, or the hardest thing I've had to learn, is the impact of my behaviour on other people. And it's a profound thing, and really putting that into perspective, really being honest with yourself and how your behaviour affects other people. And it's a hard one. That's a good answer. That's been something most recently for me, is that I thought that I understood how my behaviour affected other people, but I've never really sort of put myself in their shoes and thought, man, if somebody behaved like that to me, or if somebody did those things to me, I'd feel pretty shit. I'd be enraged. I'd be really hurt. And I've had a bit of shit lately where it's been like that, where I've done some dumb shit, I made some mistakes, and I'm now going through the process of accepting accountability and understanding the impact of my actions on other people, and not just one or two people, but everybody that was involved, and how that trickle-down effect works. And I think going forward, that's been a hard lesson for me, but going forward, I think I'll be more aware of how other people are affected by my behaviour, and I'll try not to have I hate this word, but I'll try not to have such a narcissistic approach to my behaviour, and try not to make it all about me, because it's really easy to spin things back into it being all about yourself, and you've got to realise that, man, sometimes you just have to own your shit, and sometimes you have to understand that people get hurt because of the things that you do. or the choices that you make, and that you shouldn't just always be thinking about yourself, man. You know, yeah. Without saying too much, yeah.
That's why I think the accountability is beautiful. Because even if you do fuck up, if you have the accountability, then you can go, hey, look, this is my fault. This is what I've done. How can we move forward? Yeah. Or like, you know, what can I do to repair this? Yeah. If that's something you're wanting to repair. And I think that's beautiful.
The concept of accountability, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Which it seems like, not projecting here, but it seems to be in our current society that there's very little accountability. So often is it the blame game.
Well, like, little understanding of it, yeah.
So then what was the hardest lesson for you to unlearn?
Wow.
They're hard questions, eh?
They're good questions. Yeah. That's the main thing. The hardest lesson for me to unlearn. Oh shit. If I'm honest, a lot of it has to do with judgment of other people. Beautiful. Early on, I was. I think a lot of it comes down to how I was brought up. I you know, like the men who were in my life for a short period of time, a lot of them were judgy, a lot of them were bigots, a lot of them were racist, a lot of them were transphobic, you know, that sort of thing, homophobic, and that has a rub-off effect on you. And when you get older and you start to realise that you're making friends with these people that your parents, for lack of a better term, or your adult influences in your life may have judged these people, but you're making friends with them, and you're thinking to yourself, there's nothing fucking wrong with these people. I don't understand what this attitude is about. And you become anti-racist, you become anti all those judgment, you know, all that discrimination, and you realise that people are just fucking people, and there's a lot of decent people regardless of whatever category they fit into. I hate that term, but you know, and there's nothing to be judgmental about. People are people. Everybody's got their journey. Race doesn't matter. Gender doesn't matter. Sex doesn't matter. We're all on this spinning globes, flying through space, trying to get to the same point, you know, understanding, self-awareness, all of that sort of stuff. Even the bad bastards are about self-awareness, you know. So the hardest thing for me to unlearn was that attitude of judgment, the internalized racism and stuff that I grew up with. And I hate that shit because, you know, I've always, when my oldest daughter was really, really young and she was at kindergarten, and I always tell people this story, when you're at kindergarten, you have no idea what racism is. You have no idea that there's a difference. When you go to primary school, you start to learn it. It's taught. And then you go, what the fuck is this attitude? Like, this doesn't need to exist, but it does for some reason. And I'd rather go back to that kindergarten mentality of we're all the same.
Beautiful. I love that, because that was something I recently overcome this year, was like the fear of other people's judgments. So then it's also hand in hand with actually not judging other people anymore. Because I used to have that in high school. I'd be very judgmental and very like hateful, so to speak. I could see people and be like, well, fuck this person because of this or this or this or this. Whereas now I'm very accepting. And I think it's far more beautiful way to like exist in life and walk through life, because you're looking at the beauty in people instead of what you may perceive as wrong.
No, I heard that bit on your previous video, how you talked about that, you know, about people being afraid to be themselves because of judgment. By all means, be yourself. Completely. And be unashamedly yourself. For sure.
I agree. How do you look after your mental health?
I was thinking about that on the way here. Awareness, self-awareness, man. That's the most important thing. Because I was looking at that question, you know, and I was thinking, what is my answer to that? And it's self-awareness. No matter what you're going through, be aware that it's an aspect of your mental health. It's a condition that you have. Whether it be at the time or in retrospect, be honest with yourself and be aware of yourself. So if you had a shit weekend and people ringing you up on Monday going, what the fuck was that about on Saturday, bro? Be able to say, look, man, I was having a bad night. I was not in a good space. I'm really, really sorry. At least I can see that I was a little bit fucked up at the time. I was not in the right space. You know, I wasn't very fun to be around. I'm real sorry, this is what's going. You don't have to say this is what's going on for me. You just say this is where I'm at with my state of mind, my mental health, and be honest about it. Men in particular, they just go, oh fuck, bro, yeah. Don't feel stink. Don't feel ashamed or embarrassed to say, fuck, it was an off night. It was an off night for me. I wasn't in a good place mentally. Because we're so reluctant to talk about mental health, man. Yes. That's what I want to get into anyway. That's what my channel is all about. And no, I'm not putting a plug in there. But yeah, it's all about mental health. It's all about men's mental health, and it's about encouraging men to open up and talk about their mental health. And it's about awareness. It's about learning your impact on other people. It's about supporting men, basically, sharing their stories so that we can all find better ways to function, better ways to deal with things, better tools, So if you are having a shit moment, if you wake up and you're having a really freaking bad day, at least be honest with yourself and say, okay, I'm struggling today. I'm a bit anxious. I'm a bit depressed. That's why I'm feeling like this. It'll blow over. You know what I mean? Even when you can't escape the black dog, at least acknowledge that you know that this is depression that you're feeling, and that it's something that you can fight your way out of. Don't just give in and be like, oh, fuck, I don't know what my problem is. I just don't want to see the world today. Like, be honest, be aware, and deal with it accordingly. I know when I'm down. I feel when my levels drop, and I'm honest with myself, and I'm a bit fucking depressed. I've got thoughts coming into my fucking head. I need some fresh air. I need a walk. I need to eat some good food, whatever. I need to be around friends. Just be aware of it, man.
And I think with that, it's having the tools, because like you said, getting fresh air and hanging out with your friends and going outside. So it's being aware that you're feeling a certain way, but then also how you deal with that. Because I think if you stay inside that, say the black dog, if you sit with the black dog and then you don't do anything, you just sit with the black dog all the time, it kind of grows bigger and bigger. So it's actually like pulling yourself out of that. And even if you don't feel like doing it, going outside and going to hang out with your friends, or going to the beach, or doing something that you know is going to pull you away from that dog.
Just distract yourself, man.
Well, I wouldn't use the word distraction, but yeah.
Yeah.
How do you look after your physical health?
Like anybody, I don't get enough time to go to the gym, but when I get time, I do. And I try to eat healthy. I'm somewhat aware of the shit I put in my body, so I'm not big on the 2 o'clock in the morning takeaways and stuff like that. I try to eat before work. I try to eat good food, whole foods, that sort of shit. I lift a lot of weight. I listen to my body a lot more now that I'm older. And I try to look good. Most of that is an illusion, but yeah. But I try to look good. I try to look healthy. I try to think healthy. I try to eat healthy. That's about it, really. I could do with a lot more exercise, but couldn't we all?
You say think healthy. Yeah. So what is that? What does that look like?
That's just being self-aware. Like, you've got to take responsibility for what you put in your body. So if you're going to drink, you're going to have a side effect of drinking. If you're going to do other things, then you're going to have side effects of other things. And, you take responsibility for what you put in your body. If you want to take psychedelics and have a bad trip, that's on you. You have to control yourself at the time. If you're going to drink and you're going to get too pissed, that's on you. Yep. That sort of thing. So thinking healthy is about understanding the consequences, or not so much the consequences, but the effects of what you do to yourself. If you're going to go for a 45-minute hike, your legs are going to be sore. Common sense. If you're going to smoke a lot of weed, you're going to wake up the next day feeling a bit shit, or having breathing issues, or not so much breathing issues, but you're going to feel stoned over, like hungover, that sort of thing. If you're going to take drugs, man, you're going to have a side effect. You're going to have a downside. So be prepared for that sort of thing. But just think healthy and understand what you're doing to your body. You know what I mean? If you're going to wrestle around with people, you're going to get sore. If you're going to go for a swim, if you're going to be out in the sun, you're going to get dehydrated. Just cause and effect. Yeah, cause and effect, man. You got it.
I think also with the thinking healthy, it's what you consume, like media-wise as well. Like what songs are you listening to, and what are you watching? Because I think with our generation, well, my generation personally, it's a lot of TikTok, and it's a lot of fodder all the time. And in consuming that affects our thoughts and fills our thoughts with just a lot of shit.
Dude, old TikTok's a good example.
What should everyone be doing starting today?
I think the world needs more compassion. I think that, and being aware of your behaviour, how it impacts other people. Everybody should be unlearning some bad shit. Everybody should be unlearning judgment. Everybody should be unlearning racism. They should be unlearning bigotry. They should be unlearning fascism. That's pretty much it. I mean, they should be questioning their own core beliefs and deciding whether or not they are relevant today, in today's day and age. Where
they come from as well.
Exactly. Well, yeah, man. I mean, like, connect the dots. Definitely do that. That's how you gain some self-awareness, and therapy will teach you that. Like, join the dots between why you think the way you do and where that came from, and question that, and question authority. Think for yourself. Those sorts of things. Decide your own beliefs, but unlearn some shit, eh? And I think a lot of people, they don't take the time to question their own beliefs. They don't stop and think, where does this come from? Why do I think this way? Or is this even the correct way to think? Some people are so set in their ways because it's what their dad did. It's what their dad's dad did. It's just what their family do, bro. And it's like, you don't have to be like that, And extraordinary are the individuals who break away from those patterns and become self-governing, autonomous, free-thinking people, man. Some of them are freaking amazing. And you meet them and you think, you ask them what's their background, and you think, really? Wow, you're so evolved, They're the people that really take my interest,
It's a beautiful answer. What role do women play in your life? And I'd like to include this as, like, sexually, so to speak, but also because of the fact you have daughters, how has that affected your life?
Wow.
Ooh. And like, how has having daughters affected the way you perceive women?
I'm glad I had daughters rather than sons, to be honest. I think that it in a lot of ways, it's helped me with my awareness of things like misogyny, and things like the whole patriarchal society thing. I think when you have daughters, you look at things like patriarchy and you think, shit, okay, I don't want my daughters to be brought up in a world like that. I want them to have equality. And then you start thinking of things like the woman in your life that raised you, and in my case, it was entirely my mother. Stepdad came and went, but my mother played a big part in my life, and I think back to how it was for her in the early days when I was a baby, and what she went through, and raising us and that sort of thing. And I think, it's just unfortunate that it's taken this long for the world to start to realise that equality is necessary. And she had it a lot harder in her day, and so full credit to her. I think women they're everything in my life. Raised by women, influenced by women, learning to respect women, raising women, and man, I've had a lot of relationships, and I've learnt a lot from those relationships about women and about their ideas and their expectations and their quest for equality and acknowledgement and contribution, and it's more so today. And that's the thing, it's about understanding that. Like, one of the aspects of what I want to teach with my channel is I want to almost take a feminist approach to educating men on the impact of their behaviour on people, not just women, but on people. But I want to start to look at these aspects of equality with fair and profound reason, and say that, like, there has to be a better way, than this whole traditional idea of, like, the man's the breadwinner, the man goes to work, and the woman has to keep the house, and the man comes home and the woman's still doing stuff. She's making a meal, she's cleaning up, she's keeping the house tidy, and the guy's like, my job's done once I come home, once I walk in the house, mate. It's not like that at all. You've got to make a fair contribution, especially when you have children. you've got to contribute as much as you can to the raising of those children. Make their frickin' beds, clean their rooms, whatever, be attentive and all that sort of stuff. But also contribute domestically, because it's not her job. And if she wants to pursue a career, by all means, she has the same right as you do to pursue a career. Why don't you look after the kids? Why don't you work out a compromise? Why should their lifestyles be limited by these barbaric ideas of the patriarchy, when women deserve just as much in life as men, and they shouldn't be limited because we think we're better, or because we think we're more important, or because we think we're more capable. There's certainly plenty of things they can do that we can't. Why don't we start just leveling it out?
And I think equality is like almost like different pillars, so to speak. And so often is it seen as one big one, when actually it's quite a few. And some in our society now are actually level, whereas quite a few are still completely unleveled. And so it's figuring out which isn't leveled and figuring out how to level those. Yeah, I completely agree with you. And so you said you're in a lot of relationships. Yeah. Big flex, eh? Nah. So like, no, I know, but like, what have those relationships taught you? Because I'm a young man, so I've only had very limited experiences within these relationships. So what have you learned?
I think where I'm at now, the sum of all my experiences, is that I think I've learned that honesty is probably the biggest policy in any relationship. Even if the other person's not going to like what you have to say, I think you should be completely transparent. I think that's fair, that you let the other person know exactly where you're at. If you're unhappy, don't be afraid to say it. Don't just carry on in a relationship where the issues are going to build. And I think communication, like you said earlier, I think communication is 100% in any relationship. Communication and honesty, because lies will fuck it all, and deceit and betrayal, there's a hard things to come back from. And I've betrayed people, and I've been betrayed, and that real deep, ugly, sinking feeling that you get way in the pit of your chest when someone has deliberately and maliciously or spitefully plotted against you or betrayed you because there was no communication there, or because it was a response to some trauma that they felt that you created. Just lay it all out on the table and do it. Just do it honestly, do it with clarity, so that the other person knows what they're dealing with, and they can offer that back to you. Complete transparency. I think that's really important, because when you get to the point where you're keeping things from the other person or you're lying, it's already too late. That's already a level of disrespect that will eventually snowball, which eventually leads to betrayal. So, man, I mean, I'm at a point now where I'm trying to fix a relationship that is really important to me. My girlfriend and I we've been on and off for 10, 12 years, and I made some mistakes and paid the price. And so where I'm at now is I'm learning the impact of my actions. I'm learning to be accountable, not just to say, yeah, I'm real sorry for what I did, but actually realizing what accountability means. And I'm looking at things in retrospect like, man, I wish I had just been straight up. I wish I had just said what I needed to say and given her the ability to share her thoughts on the matter, rather than just acting, causing an impact and creating trauma, and then trying to rebuild something that was important to me, that is important to me. That's been the biggest lesson. And looking at the pattern, because that's what we're really getting at here, is what have I learned from relationships? Well, looking at the pattern throughout my relationships, I look at it like, it's like a train track, and I'm looking back and I'm seeing train wreck after train wreck after train wreck behind me. But every one of them I've taken something from, and this relationship that I'm in now, I've finally got to the point where I realize and understand the value of having a significant other and treating them with respect and embracing that, and treating them how I would like to be treated. Yeah. Is that over explanation or what?
No, that was good. It's honesty and communication.
Yeah.
Yeah. And having that from the bat.
Yeah.
And even when you're doing things that will be perceived within that relationship as negative, it's still being open and honest.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Because that's the quote, what's done in the dark comes to light.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hard out.
How could you improve your life as it sits at the moment?
Ooh, I'd have to work on some of my vices, I guess.
That's intriguing. Yeah.
I could go back to stopping smoking weed. I could definitely go back to just. I'm a medicinal cannabis patient. I deal with the cannabis clinic, so I take CBD and stuff like that. And I was fine on just CBD for a while. It helped me give up weed, and then I went through some shit and started smoking again. And it's always that trap. I would like to. I'm at the point now where I'm too old for that shit. Got a 19-year-old and I got a 7-year-old, and the 19-year-old has seen a lot of me smoking weed, and the 7-year-old hasn't. And so I'd like for her to never see it, and to never know that it was ever a thing. And to do that, I've got to get it out of my life, sort of thing. And it's no issue with weed. It's a personal thing. It's me. It's that addictive behaviour that I've carried throughout my life, and I'd just like to have better control over that. I think it gives me, as much as weed makes me really creative and imaginative, and I love that. I really love that. I also love the meditation side of it. I like to get into that state of mind where it's just me and I can solve the world's problems in my own head, in silence by myself with a smoke. And it just helps me see things with more clarity. But that being said, without it, I have such a stronger mind. It's way more intact and
It's like clouded, so to speak.
and even my social interactions are better when I'm straight. When I'm straight as, man, I'm just so much more in touch and so much more in tune with people, and so much more capable of manifesting my avatars and being who I need to be. And like with smoking weed, sometimes I try to show up the best I can, but I'm in a little bit of a haze, and I'm still thinking about shit from when I was stoned earlier or whatever. And I just think that I would be a better person if I could manage that better, or even just eliminate it altogether. And this is something I've done for 30 freaking years. So, I have at times managed to live life without it for great period, what I call good periods of time, a year, 9 months, that sort of thing. And then something happens and I'm a sucker for it. So that, there's that. Yeah.
I see weed as almost like a beautiful woman, and that she holds you, and it's like really nice to embrace with that.
Yeah.
But then she won't let go, and then she holds you tighter and tighter.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's a weird one.
Yeah, because that was my vice for 3 years.
Yeah.
So for 30 years must be like...
30 years, man. Come on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I started young. Yeah.
Yeah, but I've found that like with moderation, it's so much better. Because marijuana does this thing where it's like you have these beautiful spiritual moments on it. Or like you say, when you're like very creative and you're very connected in the meditation.
Yeah.
But I found that goes away after the third or fourth smoke.
Yeah.
So that first smoke is like, whoa.
Yeah.
And then the second smoke is like, ooh.
When you've had
and
a
then
decent break, yeah.
And then you just get into like almost that. It's just, yeah.
Yeah, and you never find it again.
Yeah. Until you pull away again.
pull away.
And then you come back and then you have that moment. And then it's really easy to go back into it because you're like, oh, it's back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's strange like that.
What does rest and self-care look like?
Drink a shitload of water, get a shitload of sleep. I don't do enough of either, but that's it. At the end of the day, drink a shitload of water, get a shitload of sleep. I don't think there's anything better for you than water and sleep. Cleanse, drink a lot of water, piss a lot, get those toxins out of your body, get yourself back to regulating, and man, sleep. And don't be afraid of sleep. Don't be ashamed of sleep. If you've got the time and you want to stay in bed, if you want to sleep in the morning, do it, man. It's one of the healthiest things you can do. Reset your body. Grow. All of those things. Yeah, that's about it. Yeah.
So like, I asked this question because for about a month ago, I was on go. So every single day, it was like I'd wake up and I was like doing everything. And I got to a point when like I couldn't even like really move. I was just like so exhausted, and I didn't know what self-care looked like at the time. So I was still, because I'm so ambitious, so I'd get up and I'd still be like, this is self-care. If I go to the gym, I'm looking after myself. But it got to a point when it was just like, it was breaking me. Yeah, so maybe if I drank in water and stayed in bed, it would have helped. I mean, yeah.
Well, you need that downtime, because however much effort you put into yourself, whether it's going to the gym all the time and exercising all the time, the benefits of those things, they occur when you're asleep. So you've got to give yourself that downtime for the body to process what you've done to it, especially things like lifting weights, especially things like cardio. You're going to lose weight during the night. You're going to build muscle during the night, and or during the sleep. Get as much REM as you can. Apparently, that's the way to go.
This is off the books question. With working in the security industry, you must interact with a lot of people all the time. How do you like release the negative interactions? Because I assume there'd be quite a few interactions that aren't the healthiest for you.
It's my favourite thing.
And would you not hold on to them? Would they not stack up?
No. It's funny, like I was doing therapy, and I asked my therapist what it's like to be a therapist and to have multiple clients and to hear their stories, a lot of them negative, and to go home at the end of the day with all of that in your mind, carrying other people's shit in your head. It's the same working on the door, man. Like, you'll come across some negative interactions, but it's that thing that you feel inspired to turn that situation around. Someone comes at you hostile or someone is resistant, try to change your attitude. Try to find a level where you can relate to each other, where they can see you as a person or see you as similar to them, and then you can turn that around. You can turn that negativity around. That's one of my favourite things to do, man, is when interacting with people, you tap them on the shoulder and you say, listen, man, you're drawing attention to yourself. You're displaying signs of intox, and I need to take you outside and have a chat with you. And they tell you to get fucked. Challenge accepted. Okay, cool as. Like, you're coming at me with some attitude. You're looking at me, with a disapproving look on your face, and you think I'm going to start bullying you around. Well, I'm not going to bully you around. I'm just going to make you aware that you can't be in the bar because it's going to cost us money. It's against the law. We don't want to fine. And you don't have to go home. You just can't stay here. The old song, Closing Time. Great song, great line. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. But turning people around, man, changing their attitudes when they're coming at you real negative, I love it. I don't take any of that shit personally. Even when they're trying to be hostile or they're trying to fight with me, or if I've removed someone from the bar and they somehow get back in, and that really fucking rezzes me up, but I'm not going to get angry. I'm going to go back over and I'm going to say, hey, you shouldn't be in here. You need to leave, and try to keep it as positive as possible. Try and keep it as relaxed as possible. But it's not just in the security industry, man. Whenever I see somebody coming at me with a bit of attitude, I try to turn it around. If I see something in public where someone's having a go at somebody else and I feel compelled to get involved or interact, to get that person to come down a level, then that's what I'll do. But I'm all about that. Like, I'm all about trying to get people to come down a level. Don't come at me yelling and screaming. Don't come at me angry. Just bring it down,
How does someone who's going through like self-hatred, how do they overcome that, and how do they find self-love?
Yeah.
Like, you speak about avatars, right? So if, like, you're not comfortable in your avatar.
That's some internalized shit, eh? You've got to compartmentalize that. That's a hard one. Some of us live with some guilt, right? And some of us do live with some self-hate. You're always going to have aspects of your internal consciousness. You're going to be more aware than anybody else of the things you've done in life and the things that you feel bad about, and you are going to have some self-hate, but you've got to compartmentalize that. You've got to separate that so that you can project the best version of yourself. you have to understand what it means, what an avatar really means. It's about your presentation. It's about how you show up, and you need to sometimes separate that from what you have going on, as hard as that is. When you've got responsibilities like employment, or hanging out with your friends, or hanging out with your family, job interviews, whatever it is, you've got to show up in that moment as what you need to be. And you need to separate whatever internalized grief, trauma, guilt, whatever it is, you've got to compartmentalize that and keep it out of the equation. That's your personal shit. You don't want to project that on other people, and they don't deserve to have that projected on them. And even things like triggers, because this is really important, sometimes you'll get triggered, and sometimes it will be really hard to contain your reaction to a certain trigger. But that's where self-awareness comes into it as well. That's about looking after your mental health. That's knowing what your triggers are, and almost being able to counteract them with, no, I'm not going to fucking jump. I'm not going to snap. I know this is something triggering. I'm just going to remove myself from the situation because I know where this thought process is going. Try to stay healthy by getting away from things like that, but also try to see them before they happen. Know what your triggers are. Try to avoid circumstances or situations where you could be triggered and you may lose control, I tell my daughter this all the time. There's this book I read years ago, and I can't remember the name of it. It was something like 1408 or something like that. It was a book about the Second World War, and it was about the Holocaust and about the Jews being imprisoned and stuff like that. And there was one character, and he was a German officer, and the way that the writer depicted him is that he was always in control of his emotions, and he never showed it on the outside. So regardless of what he was thinking at the time, whether it was anger or embarrassment or frustration or amusement, he wouldn't show it on his face. And he had this pride over having control over how little reaction he showed on the outside compared to what he internalized. And that, I don't know, that stuck with me my whole life. And I've always liked the idea of being able to internalize what's going on, but not show it on the outside. So
Stoicism?
Yeah, so like you say, stoicism. So like when somebody comes up to you hostile or offends you, don't show that chink in your armor. Don't show them that they've hurt you or offended you. Don't show anything at all. Feel it on the inside and deal with them accordingly. Yep. But, that's the surprise of it. Like, you don't know if you've offended me. You've definitely tried to offend me, but I'm not showing that you've offended me. But there's a consequence for what you just did. And you're going to find out what that is, That's
the dangerous part, though, because they don't see that.
And it's, to me, that's just about having control over that. Yeah.
And then this is the last question. What role does spirituality play in your life?
So I have a connection with a higher power. And, I don't always acknowledge it, but sometimes I really do. And it's a weird thing, because I don't know what to think, right? And I do a lot of reading, I do a lot of research, and some days I wake up and I believe in the simulation theory, and some days I wake up and I believe in a creator, and sometimes I'll watch a video and I'll be like, well, that's irrefutable, and then I'll watch something that contradicts it, But despite all those things, the ups and downs and the different ideas that I have about our existence on this frickin' planet, I still feel like I have a connection with something. I still feel like it's not just a random thing that, that human life ended up on Earth. The evolution. We were microbes on a rock that, came out of the ocean that eventually evolved into mammals and blah, 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 blah. Okay, cool. But I feel something, You can tell me that life on Earth is a random occurrence. Like it's a multitude of freakish coincidences that created life on this planet, and it might be, but there's a connection, there's something there, and there is, and you can call it whatever you want. You don't have to run off to church and learn all about Christ and about God. You don't have to read the Bible. You don't have to fit into any of those religious categories. You can just say that I definitely think that there's something more that we're not aware of on a spiritual level, that I don't know if it put us here, but it feels like it's observing. It feels like someone's paying attention. And you can call it whatever you want. You can say, oh, we're being watched by aliens on the moon. But there's definitely something, man. And it's just that sense of knowing that there's something. So sometimes I do feel accountable, and I feel accountable to a higher power. If I do something dumb or stupid or bad, or if I betray somebody, or if I cheat or whatever, I always think to myself, I'm going to pay the price for that. There's a balance in the universe, and something is aware that I did a shit thing, and something is going to make sure that I experience a shit thing for doing that. And when that's happened enough times, for you to realize that's not a coincidence, that's a freaking that's a freaking consequence. Like, it's a real thing. Then I think that it becomes pretty hard to deny that there's something. That's as much as I can. Yeah, that's as much as I can explain it. I don't know. You call it God if you want, and some people do. I don't really have a name for it.
Aliens on the moon.
Yeah. But I know it's paying attention, and I know there's a balance in the universe. I mean, of course there is. You know, bad shit happens. You know, people do bad shit. People experience bad shit. I don't know a bad person on this planet who is living the high life. You know, eventually they all come down, you know.
Is there anything else you want to say? And I also like you to include like plugging your channel at this point as well.
Well, so the channel is Psychoactive 365, and it's on YouTube. There's TikTok and there's Instagram, and I've just started. It's all experimental. For me, it's a journey, and I want to take people along on the journey. My first video was in my car, so, you know, hopefully a year or two down the track, I've got a studio, I'm set up, and I'm doing things on a professional level. That's the goal anyway. My aim is to help as many men as I possibly can with their mental health struggles. I don't claim to be an expert, I'm not qualified, but that's also part of the journey for me, is to educate myself, to get myself qualified, and put myself in a position where I have some background or some qualification to what I'm trying to do, what I'm trying to achieve. Other than that, man, this has been pretty rad. I had no idea what was going to come out of me. The questions are awesome. I'm glad we finally got together and did this, man. Thanks very much.
Jared's channel will be in the description. Thanks for watching.